Have you ever sat alone in the dark, with nothing but the cold light of your phone against your face, scrolling through names that once meant everything to you? Each name a memory, each contact a promise once whispered, "I'll always be there." You pause, wondering, if you called right now, who would actually answer? The silence stretches. You don't press call. Because deep down, you already know the answer. It's in nights like these, when your chest feels heavier than your thoughts, when the room hums with quiet betrayal, that you begin to see what most people spend their lives avoiding. People vanish when the storm arrives, not always in anger, not even in cruelty, but in silence. A slow fading of presence, a slow dying of promises. The same friends who once laughed the loudest in the sunlight, who toasted your victories and echoed your dreams, are the first to fall quiet when the laughter stops. You replay old conversations, remembering the way they said, "You can count on me." But when your world caught fire, all that remained was smoke. You tell yourself they're just busy. You make excuses on their behalf. You try to keep the warmth of those memories alive, but no matter how tightly you hold, they slip through your fingers like water, until you realize you weren't holding them. You were holding an illusion, and that illusion is gone. Here's the truth no one likes to face. Loyalty sounds noble until it costs something. Everyone swears eternal loyalty when the sun is shining. But when the cold wind hits, when the lights go out, when life stops being easy, most people choose their own shelter first. That doesn't make them monsters. It makes them human. And yet, it leaves you standing in a kind of darkness no light can fully reach. You start asking yourself dangerous questions. Why did they leave when I would have stayed? Why disappear when I would have fought for them? Was I that easy to forget? Those questions burn. They scrape against your ribs like broken glass. But they are the beginning of awakening. The kind the Stoics spoke of when they said, "Don't expect figs in winter." They knew that pain isn't born from what happens. It's born from what we expected to happen. Maybe that's why heartbreak feels like suffocation, not because they left, but because you thought they never would. So here you are, sitting in the quiet aftermath, staring at your reflection in the black mirror of your screen. For the first time, you see it. The truth hidden beneath every friendship, every relationship, every promise you ever believed in. No one is coming to save you. That realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it shatters the illusion that someone out there holds the key to your peace. Liberating because it means you can finally stop waiting. You can stop searching for a rescue that was never yours to receive. The Stoics didn't teach detachment out of coldness. They taught clarity. They knew that freedom begins the moment you stop expecting people to be what they cannot. They knew that the strongest kind of love is not the one that clings, but the one that stands, unshaken, even when left alone. Maybe you've been the giver all your life, the listener, the one who showed up without being asked, the one who remembered birthdays, who carried others through their storms. But when your storm came, the room emptied. And now, you sit with that ache, not because you failed, but because you cared too deeply in a world that confuses convenience for loyalty. But this moment, this silent heartbreak, it's not the end. It's the invitation. Because in this silence, something powerful is waiting to be born. The kind of strength that doesn't shout. The kind of wisdom that doesn't need witnesses. The kind of calm that terrifies those who once underestimated you. So stay. Don't turn away from this truth. Don't fill the silence with noise. Don't run back to illusions that once comforted you. Sit here. Listen. Because what comes next will change the way you see loyalty forever. This is true Stoic way, where silence teaches louder than words. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, the kind that rattles the windows and shakes the walls. Rain lashes against your face. The wind howls like something alive. You call out, at first with hope, then with desperation, but your voice is swallowed by thunder. You wait, expecting footsteps, help, someone to appear through the blur. But no one comes. At first you think they just didn't hear you, so you shout louder. You send messages, you drop hints, you post fragments of pain, hoping someone will read between the lines. Still silence. The longer it stretches, the colder it feels, until you finally realize it's not that they can't come, it's that they won't. That's the moment your world splits. The illusion shatters. The comforting belief that someone would always rush to your aid dissolves into rainwater at your feet. You stand there drenched, trembling, alone, but awake. Because here's the truth. No one is coming to save you. Not your closest friend, not your lover, not even your family. It's not cruelty, it's not betrayal. It's the instinct of survival, the oldest truth written into the code of human nature. When the storm hits, everyone grabs for their own shelter first. You've done it too, haven't you? You've turned away from someone's pain because yours was too heavy. You've avoided the drowning hand because your own lungs were burning. You didn't mean to be heartless. You were just trying to breathe. And so are they. There's an image that captures this perfectly. Picture a man thrashing in the ocean, desperate, calling for help. Those on shore watch, hearts torn. But beside them, their children cling to their arms. Their families need them to stay strong. They hesitate, and then step back. Not because they wish him to drown, but because they cannot risk drowning too. That's what life is. Every person you know is fighting a private storm. And when survival calls, compassion falters. Not out of malice, but out of exhaustion. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Expect nothing, and you will never be disappointed." It sounds cold at first, but it's not. It's clarity. Because expectation is the seed of pain. Think about it. You suffer less from people's absence than from the story you told yourself about who they were supposed to be. You built an image, loyal, unbreakable, permanent. And when they couldn't live up to it, you mistook reality for betrayal. But people are not characters in your script. They are travelers passing through their own journeys, carrying burdens you can't always see. The pain you feel is not from their choice to leave. It's from your refusal to accept that they had to. So what now? Do you harden your heart? Become cynical? Build walls and call them wisdom? No. That's not strength. That's fear wearing armor. Real strength is quieter. It doesn't demand. It doesn't beg. It simply learns to stand alone without collapsing. The Stoics called it autarkia, self-sufficiency of the soul. To depend on yourself, not because you reject others, but because you finally understand the limits of what others can give. Look at nature. The mountain does not cry when the clouds drift away. The sea does not mourn when the tide retreats. They remain, steadfast, complete, unbroken. You must learn to do the same. Every time you stop waiting for someone to fix your pain, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you face the silence and choose not to run from it, you grow stronger in ways no applause could ever give you. Every time you stop expecting rescue, you rise a little higher. It's not an easy lesson. It burns. It feels unfair. You might whisper to yourself, "But I would have stayed for them." And maybe you would have. But that's your nature, not theirs. You can't force people to meet you at your depth. Most will drown trying. That's why you must learn to breathe underwater. You see, no one teaches you that loyalty has limits. They romanticize friendship, preach about unconditional love, but never mention the truth that everything, even devotion, bends under the weight of survival. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop feeling like a victim. You stop waiting for a savior and start becoming your own. When you finally let go of the fantasy that someone will come fix what's broken inside you, the world becomes quiet, almost painfully so. But that quiet is sacred, because in that silence, you meet the one person who never left, yourself. You begin to hear your own voice again, the one that was drowned out by all the noise of expectation. You realize you've had strength buried beneath the rubble all along. You just never had to use it. Until now. So stand there in the storm. Let the rain wash over you. Let the wind strip away what was never yours to begin with. You don't need saving. You need awakening. Because once you stop looking outward for rescue, you begin to look inward for power. And what you'll find there, calm, resilient, unstoppable, will carry you further than any promise ever could. Remember this, the world doesn't owe you a rescuer. But it does offer you a choice, to wait or to rise. Each time you stop waiting for rescue, you rise a little higher. Since childhood, we've all been told the same comforting lie: true loyalty lasts forever. It sounded noble, didn't it? The kind of line you'd see in movies written under pictures of soldiers, friends, or lovers. People who would never leave your side. You were taught that if you give everything, if you love deeply, if you stand by others through every storm, they'll do the same for you. It felt fair. It felt safe. But life isn't scripted by fairy tales. And loyalty, at least the way we imagine it, doesn't last forever. That myth was planted early. It grew through childhood stories, school lessons, and Hollywood endings, where every bond survived betrayal, every friend returned, every love endured. We were raised to believe that loyalty is eternal, that good people never walk away, that if someone leaves, it means something is wrong with us. So you grew up overgiving. You learned to hold on longer than you should. You became the one who stayed after everyone else had gone, because you believed that's what good people do. But here's the truth. The Stoics understood long before our age of sentimentality, people are not loyal to you. They are loyal to their needs, and when their needs change, so does their loyalty. It sounds harsh, until you realize you do the same. You're loyal to what brings you peace, to what nourishes your soul, to what aligns with your path. You don't stay where you are drained, disrespected, or ignored. You move on. Everyone does. The pain only begins when you demand that others live by a rule you yourself could never keep. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who carried everyone else's weight. The kind who would show up in the middle of the night when a friend called crying. The kind who'd lend money he didn't have. The kind who believed that loyalty meant never saying no. And so he gave, and gave, until there was nothing left. Then one day the roles reversed. His own life began to fall apart. His phone stopped lighting up. The same friends who swore, "You can always count on me," disappeared into the fog of silence. At first he was angry, then heartbroken, then hollow, until he realized they weren't villains. They were simply human. Their loyalty had run its course because their needs had changed. They didn't need him anymore, and his pain didn't fit into their schedule. It wasn't betrayal. It was life moving forward. When he finally stopped expecting forever, he began to breathe again. Here's the Stoic truth that burns but liberates. Loyalty is not a permanent bond. It's a temporary alignment of needs, values, and circumstances. When that alignment ends, so does the illusion. Seneca once said, "Each day is a life." He meant that every moment demands choice, and most people choose what serves them today, not what they promised yesterday. You may think this makes humanity selfish, but it doesn't. It makes us honest. To demand eternal loyalty from others is to deny the nature of impermanence, and to live in denial is to suffer endlessly. Now look deeper. Beneath your disappointment lies something more dangerous, a hidden illusion. You don't just want people's loyalty. You want them to mirror the loyalty you give. You want them to act according to your script because you think your way is the right way. But that expectation is not love. It's control disguised as goodness. This is what psychologists call the reciprocal illusion. You don't fall in love with people as they are. You fall in love with the reflection of yourself you see in them. Your patience, your kindness, your consistency. You expect them to behave as you would because you mistake that reflection for their reality. And when they don't, the mirror cracks. You don't just lose them, you lose the image of yourself you built through them. That's why it hurts so deeply. The Stoics warned against this very trap. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Expect nothing, and you will never be disappointed." He wasn't saying don't care. He was saying, don't chain your peace to someone else's choices. Because the moment you do, you've handed them the power to control your happiness. You cannot demand permanence from what was never designed to last. People change, bonds evolve, love fades, loyalty bends. That's not tragedy, that's nature. Once you accept this, something shifts inside you. You stop begging for consistency and start appreciating presence. You stop clinging to promises and start valuing truth. You stop saying, "They left me," and start understanding, "Our paths simply parted." That's when peace begins to return, quietly, gently, without apology. Because now, when people drift away, you don't chase, you don't accuse, you simply nod with gratitude for the chapter they gave you, and then keep walking. That's what real strength looks like. Not bitterness, not detachment, clarity. So if this truth stings, good. Pain is the first sign that you're waking up. You were never meant to hold everyone. You were meant to hold yourself steady as they come and go. That steadiness, that calm awareness that loyalty is momentary, is what sets you free. Here's a truth that most people spend their whole lives running from. Everyone is loyal, but only to themselves. It sounds selfish. It sounds cruel, but it isn't. It's nature. The same instinct that keeps a mother awake through the night for her child, that drives a man to work until his body breaks, that makes people fight for food, safety, and love, is the same instinct that makes them turn away when your storm threatens to drown them too. Every creature born into this world carries one unshakable law: survive first. Everything else, affection, loyalty, kindness, comes second. You see it in the smallest things. In the way someone listens to your pain, then rushes to change the subject. In the way friends fade when you're no longer fun to be around. In the way people comfort you, not to help you heal, but to quiet their own discomfort. They mean well, they just can't afford to sink. It's not because they're bad, it's because they're human. The Stoics saw this clearly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Freedom begins when you stop expecting permanence." He knew that the only prison is the one built from our own expectations, expecting people to be constant in a world where nothing is. Think about it. We expect others to love us forever, to understand us completely, to show up endlessly. But do we do that for everyone in our own lives? No. Because no one can. Because loyalty, empathy, patience, all have limits shaped by fatigue, fear, and self-preservation. That doesn't make humanity broken. It makes it fragile. Beautifully fragile. There was once a woman who lived her entire life for others. She was the listener, the shoulder everyone leaned on, the one who stayed up through the night talking people off ledges, who lent money she couldn't afford to lose, who believed that love meant carrying everyone else's weight. And for a time that made her feel strong, needed, important. But when her own world fell apart, when illness came, when grief hollowed her out, when she needed even a fraction of the care she had given, the phone stopped ringing. The same people who had once said, "I don't know what I'd do without you," disappeared into silence. At first she was angry, then she was ashamed, convinced she must have done something wrong. But eventually she began to see the truth. They hadn't betrayed her. They had simply reached the limit of their strength. They couldn't carry her because they were barely carrying themselves. And for the first time, she stopped asking, "Why did they leave?" and started asking, "Why did I expect them to stay?" That was the moment she began to heal. Because what broke her wasn't their absence. It was her illusion. She had believed that loyalty was a debt others owed her for her kindness. But kindness is not a contract. It's a gift. And once given, it must be released. The Stoics would say her suffering was not caused by what happened, but by her refusal to accept what had always been true, that people act according to their nature. And their nature, like yours, is to protect their own peace first. When she finally accepted that, something inside her shifted. The resentment faded, the heaviness lifted. She began to live without the need for constant reciprocation. And in that release, she discovered something astonishing: peace. Because once you stop demanding that others be who you imagine them to be, you finally see them as they are. And seeing them clearly doesn't make you bitter. It makes you free. Epictetus taught that freedom comes only when you stop clinging to what lies beyond your control. Expecting permanence from people is exactly that, an act of control disguised as love. You cannot make someone stay. You cannot demand they give you what they no longer have. And you cannot hold others to standards they never agreed to live by. All you can do, all you've ever been able to do, is to meet reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. That's where serenity begins. When you understand this, your heart changes. You stop chasing explanations. You stop collecting apologies that will never come. You stop rehearsing the same heartbreak in your mind, hoping to edit it into something softer. Instead, you accept it. And in that acceptance, you rise. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you harden into stone. It means you care differently. You love without demand. You give without chains. You walk beside others without expecting them to carry you. Because when you free others from your script, you free yourself. You stop being a prisoner of disappointment. You stop needing people to behave in ways that soothe your insecurities. You begin to appreciate their presence when it's there, and to bless their absence when it's gone. And that's the quiet paradox of strength. When you no longer need people to stay, you finally have the space to let them come closer. The woman who once begged for company now walks lighter. She still loves deeply, still gives freely. But she does so without fear, because she knows that everything in life, friendship, affection, even loyalty, is temporary. And yet, it is enough. You don't need forever to feel gratitude. You don't need permanence to feel peace. You only need clarity, the kind that comes when you stop resisting the way things are. And when you finally reach that state, you'll realize something profound. You were never betrayed. You were simply taught to expect more than human hearts can hold. So release the bitterness. Release the scripts. Let people be who they are. And let yourself be free. When you free others from your script, you free yourself. Imagine life as a mountain. At the bottom, the air is warm, laughter easy, and the path smooth. Everyone walks beside you there, talking, joking, full of plans. You feel surrounded, supported, invincible. Every step feels lighter because you believe you're not climbing alone. That's the illusion, the beautiful, dangerous illusion of the early climb. When things are easy, loyalty is cheap. People will say, "We're in this together," and they'll mean it, at least for now. You'll believe in unbreakable bonds, in forever friendships, in the promise that no matter what happens, they'll be there when you reach for them. But the mountain doesn't care about promises. As the slope begins to rise, the ground grows uneven, the wind sharper, and the climb steeper. Something begins to change. The same people who once cheered beside you start to slow down. Some make excuses. "I'll catch up later." Some turn back quietly, disappearing down the trail, and some pretend they never promised to climb at all. At first, you don't notice. You're too focused on the summit, too focused on proving that the loyalty you believed in was real. But eventually, the noise fades, the laughter dies. You look around and realize the trail has gone silent. You call out, but only your echo answers. That's the moment you understand. Not everyone who starts the journey is meant to finish it with you. It feels like betrayal, but it's not. It's simply the law of the mountain. Because as the climb grows harsh, people start choosing safety over solidarity. The air thins, the path narrows. Survival instincts take over. Some don't have the strength, some lose the will, some fear the height itself, and so they stop. You can hate them for it, or you can learn what the Stoics taught long ago. People leaving is not your wound. Expecting them to stay is. That realization stings at first. It feels cold, but it's the kind of cold that purifies, like ice melting off a blade, revealing something sharper beneath. There was once a man who learned this the hard way. In his youth, he was surrounded by friends. His home was always full, late-night talks, shared dreams, endless plans. They celebrated his successes like their own, and he believed that meant something eternal. Then life turned. He lost his job. His relationship fell apart. His health declined. One by one, the visitors stopped coming. The same people who once promised, "I've got your back," now avoided his calls. He sank into bitterness, replaying every moment, every toast, every word of loyalty that had once felt unbreakable. He told himself they were cowards, liars, frauds. But anger didn't fix the silence, it only made it heavier. And then, one day, sitting alone with nothing left to lose, he understood. They hadn't betrayed him. They had simply returned to their own paths. His pain had become too heavy for them to carry, and they were never meant to. That day, something shifted. He stopped resenting the silence and started preparing himself to move forward. Alone. He trained his body. He rebuilt his mind. He learned to find peace not in company, but in solitude. And one morning, he woke to realize the mountain hadn't changed. Only he had. He no longer feared the empty trail. He no longer waited for footsteps behind him. He simply climbed, and in that climb, he found a strength no crowd could ever give. That's the secret most never discover. The higher you go, the fewer companions you'll have. Not because people are cruel, but because the path of growth is narrow and the air of clarity is thin. Only those who are training their own spirit can keep up with you. The rest will stop where the comfort ends. You can't carry them. You're not meant to. The mountain is your test, not theirs. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." He might as well have said, "You have power over your climb, not who joins you." When people leave, let them. When silence replaces laughter, listen to it. When the path narrows, trust your own steps, because the ones who leave were never meant to see the summit, and that's not tragedy, it's truth. Every climber must eventually face the moment of solitude, when no voice answers back and no hand reaches out. That's where strength is born. That's where clarity begins. When you learn to keep walking without resentment, when you release the demand that others stay longer than they can, you'll discover something rare. Peace that no abandonment can take from you. The Stoics didn't see solitude as punishment. They saw it as purification. The mountain strips away the unnecessary, leaving only what's real. You. So let the climb shape you. Let the silence toughen you. Let the loneliness teach you what noise never could. Because every step you take alone strengthens the ground beneath you. And one day, when you reach the peak and look back down, you'll realize something powerful. It was never about who stayed. It was always about who you became. So stop looking for company. Stop mourning those who stopped walking. Your climb, your growth, your peace was never meant to be a group project. You were always destined to ascend alone. And once you accept that, you'll see the truth that changes everything. The summit isn't a place. It's a state of mind. Every step you take alone strengthens the ground beneath you. Picture this. You've built a beautiful house, but not on your own land. The soil beneath it belongs to someone else. Every brick you lay, every wall you paint, every corner you fall in love with, it all sits on borrowed ground. For a while, it feels like home. You convince yourself it's yours. You grow attached to the light that enters through the windows, to the laughter that fills the rooms, to the illusion of security. Until one day, the owner knocks on your door and says, "It's time to leave." And in that instant, everything you built, everything you believed would last, begins to collapse. That is what happens when you build your peace, your worth, your happiness on other people. Because no matter how much they promise, no matter how sincere they sound, they cannot guarantee permanence. They are borrowed ground, beautiful, comforting, but never yours to own. The moment they walk away, your foundation shakes and you crumble with it. You think you've lost love. You think you've lost loyalty. But what you really lost was your illusion of control. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Epictetus wrote, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will flow well." At first glance, it seems like surrender, but it's not. It's mastery. He was teaching the art of accepting impermanence, of building peace not on what changes, but on what endures, your inner composure, your perspective, your discipline. You can't control who stays or who leaves. You can't control the storms, the endings, the shifting loyalties. But you can control how you meet them. If you spend your life demanding permanence, you will live in constant disappointment. Because nothing, no friendship, no relationship, no promise, survives untouched by time. And that's not failure. It's the rhythm of existence. There was once a man who learned this lesson the hard way. He was loyal, perhaps too loyal. He gave his time, his heart, his trust to people who once swore they'd never walk away. He believed love meant endurance, that real friendship could withstand anything. But when life turned dark, when his health broke and his fortune faded, he watched those same people disappear one by one. Some drifted quietly, others left without a word. At first he was consumed by anger. He told himself they were ungrateful, selfish, disloyal. But the longer he sat in that bitterness, the more it began to eat at him. He stopped sleeping. He stopped smiling. He kept replaying the story, rewriting it in his mind, hoping it would make sense. Until one day, while sitting alone on a park bench, he realized something so simple, so obvious, that it almost made him laugh. The problem was never them. It was him. It wasn't their leaving that broke him. It was his refusal to accept that they could. He had built his peace on borrowed ground, expecting others to hold steady what only he could secure. When that truth sank in, he stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. He stopped demanding closure from those who no longer cared. Instead, he turned his focus inward, to the only ground that was truly his. He started rebuilding, one quiet act at a time. A morning walk, a page of reflection, a deep breath before reacting. And with each step, the walls inside him grew stronger. Not walls to keep people out, but foundations that could not be taken away. He began to see people differently. They were not anchors, they were passing ships. Some stopped for a while, some stayed longer, but all eventually sailed on. And that was okay, because the ocean remained. That's what you are. The ocean, not the boats that come and go, not the fleeting shapes on your horizon, but the vast, calm depth beneath it all. When you finally stop trying to possess people or moments, you begin to enjoy them as they are, not as you wish them to be. And paradoxically, that's when your relationships become richer, not weaker. Because when you release your grip, you make space for authenticity. You stop forcing permanence and start embracing presence. That's what Epictetus meant. To wish not for things to happen as you want, but to want them as they happen. To flow with life, not fight against it. Peace does not come from keeping things. It comes from understanding that you never needed to. Impermanence is not a curse. It's clarity. It's life reminding you that nothing outside yourself is guaranteed, and that's what makes everything precious. So the next time someone leaves or something ends, don't curse the emptiness. Sit with it. Let it show you what was illusion and what was real. Because in that stillness, a strange thing happens. You realize you're still here. You survived. And that survival itself is proof that nothing essential was ever lost. Your peace was never theirs to take. Your worth was never theirs to validate. Your strength was never theirs to define. It was always yours, waiting beneath the ruins of your expectations. So stop building houses on borrowed ground. Stop asking others to be your foundation. Be your own solid ground. You don't need permanence to find peace. You need perspective. We've all grown up with the same comforting image, a circle of friends that grows old together. Laughter around the same table, inside jokes that never fade, loyalty untouched by years or distance. It's the fantasy we all buy, the one sold in movies, engraved in our culture, whispered in the promises we make when we're young. We'll always stay the same. But life doesn't work like that, because life doesn't freeze. It flows. People change, circumstances shift, priorities rearrange, and the faces that once felt like forever begin to blur at the edges of time. At first, we don't notice. We mistake change for distance. We tell ourselves, it's just a busy season. But seasons turn into years, and the voices that once echoed daily fade into silence. And when we finally look up, the circle we swore would never break is no longer whole. That realization hurts, because we mistake change for betrayal. We think love should mean permanence. We think loyalty should mean sameness. But it doesn't. The Stoics understood what most people refuse to see. Everything, everyone, is in constant motion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe how all things change, and be content with this." He didn't say tolerate it. He said be content. Because fighting change is like trying to stop the tide with your hands. You exhaust yourself, and the sea still rises. Look at your own life. The friends who once walked closest beside you. Are they still here in the same way? Maybe you don't talk every day. Maybe you've drifted apart. Not because love died, but because life demanded new versions of you both. One found a family, another found a dream, and you found a different path. You used to think that meant loss, but it's just transformation. The same river that carried you together once will eventually split into new branches. That's how water moves, and that's how people do too. But when we refuse to accept that, we suffer. We chase ghosts of what used to be, trying to keep people frozen in a version of themselves that no longer exists. We beg for the past to return, not realizing it can't, and shouldn't. Here's the truth. They didn't betray you by changing. They just kept living. You changed too, but in your own way. The tragedy isn't that people change, it's that we cling to them as if they shouldn't. Change isn't betrayal. Betrayal is intentional harm. Change is simply life doing what it always does. Move. Think about it like a train. At every station, people get on and people get off. Some ride with you for a few stops, some for half the journey, and a rare few stay until the very end. You don't rage at those who step off. You simply keep moving toward your destination, because the journey doesn't stop for anyone. Life is the same. But we forget that. We romanticize permanence because we fear emptiness. We cling to what's fading because we're scared of what comes after. But you can't grow while gripping what's already gone. You can't evolve if you're chained to the past. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who couldn't let go. He had a friend, someone who once felt like a brother. They shared everything, victories, heartbreaks, plans for the future. Then time did what time always does. The friend grew distant, distracted by a new life, new goals. Calls became rare, messages unanswered. But the man refused to accept it. He replayed old conversations, held on to memories like sacred relics, convinced that if he just tried harder, things would go back to the way they were. Months passed, years even. But the harder he clung, the more it hurt. Until one night, sitting in the same old cafe where they used to meet, he realized something. He was talking to a ghost, not of his friend, but of the past. That version of them no longer existed, and the more he chased it, the further away he drifted from his own present. That night he whispered to himself, "They were with me for a season. That season is over." And just like that, the ache softened. Not vanished, but softened. He didn't feel hatred. He felt gratitude, for the laughter that once was, for the moments that helped shape him. He learned to say, "Thank you for walking this far," and continued his climb alone. That's what real maturity looks like. Not clinging, not resenting, but releasing with grace. People are not meant to stay unchanged. You aren't either. Growth demands movement, and movement demands loss. Sometimes you'll outgrow people. Sometimes they'll outgrow you. Neither is wrong. Both are necessary. You can't drag someone toward the summit if they've chosen to rest in the valley. And you shouldn't. Because every moment you spend trying to pull others up a mountain they don't want to climb is a moment you stop climbing your own. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." He meant that growth will often look like betrayal to those who fear change. They'll say you've become distant, cold, arrogant, but in truth you've simply evolved. They want you to stay who you were because it makes them comfortable, but life doesn't honor comfort, it honors truth. So when someone drifts away, let them. When someone changes, don't fight it. When someone reveals who they truly are, believe them. Let them change. Let them go. Let them walk their road while you keep walking yours. Because your life is not defined by who stays. It's defined by who you become through every departure. And here's the paradox. When you learn to let go, you stop losing. Because everything meant for your growth will align with you naturally. No begging, no chasing, no fear. Change is not the enemy. Attachment is. When you cling to people, you turn love into a cage. But when you release them, you allow both of you to grow. The Stoics saw this clearly. They didn't resist the flow of life. They became one with it. They understood that nothing was ever truly lost. It only transformed. So stop mourning what's shifting. Stop labeling every departure as betrayal. Sometimes people must leave so you can meet the next version of yourself. And sometimes change hurts because it's pulling you toward your destiny. So let the train move. Let the journey unfold. Be grateful for every companion, whether they stayed one stop or half the ride. And keep your eyes forward. Because the truth is, your destination was never about them. It was always about you. And when you finally arrive, calmer, wiser, unshaken, you'll understand that every change, every ending, every goodbye was a quiet act of grace, clearing space for your next beginning. Type, I rise, if you choose growth over attachment. Because those who rise don't chase what's leaving. They walk forward and steady, silent, unafraid, knowing that what is meant for them will never need to be held so tightly. Most people don't realize they are prisoners, not of others, but of their own need to be seen. They live every day chained to invisible expectations, measuring their worth through someone else's eyes. They wait for a message to feel valuable, for approval to feel confident, for affection to feel alive. When the world claps, they shine. When it grows silent, they collapse. That's not love. That's emotional slavery. And yet, it's everywhere. We were trained for it. From childhood, we were rewarded for good behavior, praised when we pleased others, scolded when we didn't. We learned early that validation was survival, that our peace depended on being liked, accepted, admired. But here's the truth. When you build your sense of self on other people's approval, you don't live. You perform. You shapeshift. You become whatever keeps the applause going, even if it kills your soul. The Stoics called this the greatest trap of all: dependence. There was once a man who loved a woman with his entire being. He would say, "I can't live without her." At first it sounded romantic, a declaration of devotion. But look closer, and you'll see it for what it was: a confession of weakness. Because "I can't live without you" is not love. It's surrender, not to passion, but to fear. He believed she was the source of his peace, his purpose, his identity. So every time she smiled, his heart soared. Every time she pulled away, his world fell apart. He began shrinking to fit her moods, erasing his opinions to avoid conflict, giving up his dreams just to stay close. He stopped being himself and became a reflection of her comfort. When she finally left, he didn't just lose her. He lost himself, because he had handed her the keys to his emotional life. That's what dependence does. It convinces you that love must mean surrender, that peace must be borrowed, that happiness must be granted. But what the Stoics knew, what most people never learn, is that the one who depends is never free. Epictetus warned, "If you wish to be free, disregard the things beyond your control." And what's more beyond your control than another person's love? Dependence feels safe, but it's an illusion. It gives comfort at first, the warmth of belonging, the thrill of attention. But slowly, it becomes a leash. The same hand that strokes you can tighten its grip at any moment. You begin to fear silence. You fear being unseen. You fear being alone. And the more you fear it, the more you lose yourself. Freedom begins the day you stop begging others to make you feel whole. The day you look in the mirror and realize the power you've been searching for in everyone else was always in you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." That's not poetry. It's instruction. He meant, stop looking outward for permission to exist. Stop outsourcing your peace. Stop measuring your worth by reactions, attention, or affection. Because the one thing that no one can ever take from you is the ability to govern your own mind. Seneca called it the empire within, the idea that true power lies in ruling yourself. You don't need a kingdom. You only need command over your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. That's the throne of the Stoic, the seat of self-mastery. When you reclaim it, something profound happens. You stop reacting to every silence as rejection. You stop taking distance as proof of unworthiness. You stop needing to be loved to feel lovable. You begin to choose connection out of strength, not fear. Love then becomes voluntary, not desperate. Compassion becomes generosity, not transaction. Loyalty becomes presence, not dependence. The Stoics were not cold. They loved deeply, but wisely. They believed that affection should never cost you yourself. That you could walk beside someone, not beneath them. That you could share your heart, but never surrender your soul. Because the moment you hand someone the power to define your worth, you also hand them the power to destroy it. The man who once said, "I can't live without her," eventually learned this. He spent months drowning in sorrow, mistaking heartbreak for tragedy. But in that wreckage, he began to rebuild. Slowly, quietly. He started with small things, morning walks, reading, breathing, moments of stillness. He began talking to himself the way he used to talk to her, with patience, kindness, presence. And then, one day, he caught his reflection and realized he didn't look broken anymore. He looked free. Because he no longer needed her to feel alive. He wanted her once, but he no longer needed her. And that's the difference between love and dependency. Love is a choice. Dependency is a cage. Freedom is choosing yourself, not out of pride, but out of truth. You cannot love anyone fully until you've learned to stand whole on your own, because otherwise, what you call love is really just need wearing a mask. When you validate yourself, when you learn to be your own anchor, something remarkable happens. The world stops controlling your emotions. You no longer wait for someone to text you back to feel peace. You no longer panic when people drift away. You no longer fear solitude. You begin to understand that solitude is not punishment, it's power. It's where your thoughts sharpen, your spirit steadies, your soul grows quiet enough to hear its own voice again. That's where all freedom begins, inside the silence you used to run from. When you find peace in your own company, the chains fall away. You walk lighter, you love cleaner, you live freer. Because your heart no longer begs, it chooses. Your love no longer fears, it stands. Your worth no longer fluctuates, it's grounded in truth. The Stoics called this autarkeia, self-sufficiency of the soul. It's the ability to need nothing but virtue, to depend on no one but your own character, and to find contentment not in what you have, but in who you are. That's what it means to be the emperor of yourself. You command your thoughts, you govern your peace, you decide your worth. And when you do, you can love fearlessly, because love is no longer a lifeline, but a gift. So let the applause fade, let the silence stretch, let people come and go. Because once you've made peace with yourself, you've already found everything you were looking for in them. Freedom isn't found in being loved, it's found in knowing that even without love, you are still enough. If this speaks to you, subscribe to True Stoic Way. We walk this path together. Remember that night, the one where you sat in the dark, phone glowing in your hand, scrolling through names that once felt like lifelines? You told yourself you just needed to hear a familiar voice. You didn't. You didn't need them. You needed you. You see it now, don't you? The truth that's been whispering through every silence since. No one is coming. Not because the world is cruel, but because it's honest. Everyone is fighting their own storm, just like you. And the only person guaranteed to walk beside you from your first breath to your last is the one in the mirror. The Stoics called this the ultimate mastery, not power over others, but power over yourself. To become your own friend, your own teacher, your own savior. Because when everything else falls away, when the promises dissolve, when the support fades, when the applause stops, you will still be here. And that is enough. But most people never reach this truth. They spend their lives abandoning themselves in the name of belonging. They say yes when they want to say no. They shrink their truth to fit inside someone else's comfort. They tolerate disrespect out of fear of being alone. They betray their values to be accepted. They hand away their peace piece by piece and call it love. That is not loyalty. That is self-neglect. And the cost of that neglect is your strength, your clarity, your freedom. You cannot be free if your worth depends on how others treat you. You cannot be strong if your peace is built on other people's moods. You cannot grow if you keep abandoning yourself to keep the world happy. The Stoics understood this paradox better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That's not philosophy. That's a survival code. It means, stop looking outward for what can only be built inward. You can't control who stays. You can't control who understands you. But you can control how you respond. And that is where all freedom begins. Epictetus said it with even sharper clarity. To depend on another for your peace is to live at their mercy. He knew the chain doesn't always look like iron. Sometimes it looks like affection. Sometimes it looks like care. But if your calm breaks every time someone withdraws, you are not loving. You are serving. So what do? You rebuild. From the inside out. You start showing up for yourself the way you wished others would have. You keep your own promises. You guard your own energy. You stand by your own truth even when no one else stands beside you. You start small, with silence, with reflection, with discipline. You become your own steady hand in the chaos. That's what the Stoics meant by virtue. Not moral perfection, but alignment. The ability to stay true to yourself no matter who comes, who leaves, or what falls apart. And slowly, something miraculous happens. The same silence that once terrified you becomes your home. The same solitude that once felt like punishment becomes your strength. You stop chasing company to escape your thoughts. You start sitting with them until they reveal the wisdom you'd been too loud to hear. You learn to be your own comfort when the world grows cold, your own voice when everything feels uncertain, your own reminder that you are still standing. This is what it means to be free. Because freedom isn't the absence of pain, it's the mastery of it. It's walking through the storm without begging it to stop. It's saying, I can endure this, and meaning it. You don't need to become heartless to become unbreakable. You just need to become honest. You will still care deeply. You will still love fiercely. But you will do it from strength, not need. You will no longer give away your peace as a payment for being loved. And here's the paradox. When you no longer need people, you finally start attracting the right ones. Not because you chase, but because you radiate. Not because you beg, but because you stand. Strength calls to strength. Clarity calls to clarity. And peace attracts those who have learned to live without chaos. The moment you stop asking the world to complete you is the moment you become whole. Look back at everything that's happened. Every silence, every goodbye, every heartbreak. You thought those moments were destroying you. They weren't. They were carving you open, making space for the real you to rise. You are not the person who was left behind. You are the person who kept walking. That's the story the world will never see. The nights you didn't break, the mornings you rose without applause, the quiet victories of endurance. Those are the moments that built you. Those are the moments that made you unshakable. The Stoics didn't seek immortality in monuments or wealth. They sought it in integrity, in becoming so steady within themselves that no loss could unseat their peace. You can do the same. Start today. By forgiving yourself for every time you abandoned your own heart. By reclaiming every piece of power you gave away to people who didn't know how to hold it. By remembering that solitude is not the absence of love, it is the presence of self. The only friend who never leaves is the one inside you. The one who listens when the world goes silent. The one who fights when everyone else gives up. The one who has been with you through every storm and will walk with you through every sunrise still to come. So stop running from that person. Stop numbing their voice. Turn toward them. Listen, because they've been waiting, not to rescue you, but to remind you who you are. You are not broken. You are awakening. You are remembering the strength that was never gone, only forgotten. And when you finally stand in that truth, you will understand what freedom really means. Not needing the world to stay steady, because you already are. That is the heart of Stoicism. Not indifference, but independence. Not coldness, but clarity. Not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. So remember, you don't need anyone to choose you. You only need to choose yourself. The world respects those who walk alone, not out of arrogance, but out of peace. Because when you walk alone and still stand tall, the silence itself begins to follow you like a shadow of reverence. And that's when you finally become untouchable. Not because life stops testing you, but because you've built what no one can ever take: unshakable self-reliance. If you're ready to rise above illusions, join True Stoic Way. Here we build men of silence, strength, and clarity. Type "I rise" and walk with us.